welcome to another Shop My Stash. You guys, I'm doing it a little bit differently this time. I've already selected the products and I'm just quickly going to show them to you. I figured this might be a little bit better than my shaky hands going through all the drawers with you. Please let me know what you prefer. If you prefer that I show you my drawers and we go through the selection process together, be sure to let me know. If you like this setup a little bit better, also do let me know. This way I will know what your preference is. But for today I've already selected the products. So let's just quickly go through them. I'm hanging around at home, so today I've actually picked out a foundation that I want to eventually go through, and this is the Hourglass Vanish Stick Foundation. I don't hate this foundation, but I'm not in love with it either. For whatever reason, it just always looks a little bit too dry on my skin. And I have to say, when I apply it, immediately it looks very dry, but then as my oils break through and mix in with it, it starts to look really flawless. So, although I'm not fully enjoying it, it's not a bad foundation, and it's not a foundation that I hate. On days when I don't really care if my foundation looks perfect, I do choose for this one. So I feel like today is one of those perfect days to get a little bit more use out of this foundation. Then for my bronzer, I have picked out this one from Too Faced. This is the classic chocolate soleil bronzer. I have used this bronzer so very much, you guys, and you can't even tell that there is a dent in it. It's just super hard to go through a bronzer with so much in it, and it's a nice bronzer. I do enjoy it for like more neutral, cool leaning looks. But it is very matte, and I've grown a little bit out of super matte formulas for blush and bronzer, so I do want to get a bit more use out of this. I do occasionally use it in my regular life because, as you guys have already seen in my blush and bronzer collection, I don't really have super many bronzers, but lately I will go for my cream bronzers above my super matte bronzers, so I think this one is perfect to be included in a Shop My Stash, just to get a bit more use out of it. As for blush and highlighter, we are actually going to be using something super fun. These are my new Sandler Watercolor Liquid Blush and Highlighters. These came in a set of 4. The set contains an additional blush in a more peachy color, but because of the look I think I'm going for today, I took out the pinky looking blush. And what we're going to do is mix them a little bit, both for the blush as well as for the highlighter. I don't know if this is going to work out super well with that matte formula, but we're going to give it a try. I'm curious whether that works out. I do eventually want to make a separate video on these because they are such a fabulous product, and honestly, if you search YouTube, you cannot really find much reviews or information on these blushes, and especially not on the set that I purchased, which I did, by the way, from Look Fantastic. So I'm eventually going to do a separate video on this. For eyeshadow, we are going with 2 throwbacks from Urban Decay. I have picked out the Urban Decay Gwen Stefani palette. This is a very old release, you guys. This is from 2015. Is it a palette that rocks anyone's world in the year of 2021? Not really. And even back in 2015, I feel like a lot of these colors are so very similar and look so incredibly like samey on the eyes that there's a lot of like redundancy within this palette. But it is a very nostalgic palette for me, both because of a time when I used to really enjoy Urban Decay and look forward to their releases, and because of Gwen Stefani, and no doubt it's a solid palette. The mattes here are pretty good, the shimmers are okay, they're not going to blow anyone's socks off in the year of 2021, but they still work fine, and especially if one is going for a more subtle look. However, I don't want to be going for a super subtle look, so we are also going to be taking out the Moondust palette, which contains 8 of Urban Decay's Moondust Formula eyeshadows, which is kind of like a predecessor of the special shades from Pat McGrath, because these are really sparkly, they're beautiful, they serve as toppers, but they can also be built up to have enough opacity to work on their own. And as you can tell, I don't know whether you can tell, I've used some of these quite a bit, especially the shades Light Year, Element, Magnetic, Spectre. I do really like these 2 shades here as well. I use this one and this one a little bit less often, so let's see which one we are going for today. But I think this was a beautiful formula, especially for the time that it was released. And finally for lips, once again I have 2 lipsticks that I'm doubting between. This is the shade Hideaway, which is quite a neutral leaning rosy pink. And the other pink shade that I picked out, also from Urban Decay by the way, is the shade Backtalk, which leans a little bit more rosy pink. I don't know, this one is, as you can see, deeper in tone. This one, they're both like rosy pinks. This one is just a little bit deeper in tone. I am gravitating a little bit more towards the shade Hideaway, but I want to decide upon seeing the eye look. And finally, I would like to apply a little bit of this gloss on top. This is from Anastasia Beverly Hills. It used to be my absolute favorite gloss of all time. This is the shade Vintage Rose, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, it's just called Vintage. And it is a beautiful dusty rose, very much in the tones of the two lipsticks that we chose. As you can see, it will work pretty much on both lipsticks, although it fits a little bit better with Back Talk. And that is all that I have picked out for my Shop My Stash basket today. I'll turn you around and we're going to do the look together. Well, hello again. Let's start off with the foundation. I am not going to apply anything as a base underneath it, which I would normally do. Normally I would apply my MAC Strobe Cream underneath this because I feel like this foundation applies a little bit better over a sticky base, at least for me. But I just did my For You UFO treatment and I feel like my skin is still a little bit tacky from that, so I think that should be enough of a base for the foundation. And I'm going to try applying it with one of my new favorite brushes. This is one of my new Japanese Fude brushes. This is the Koyodo Fupa 6, I want to say, the mini foundation in number 6, but I'm not completely sure. I will do a separate review on all of the Fude brushes that I picked up recently, so look out for that. But for now I'm just going to try it with this foundation because I'm curious. I'm going to draw on a few lines. And I will start to basically buff this in using the Koyodo brush. I adore this brush. I picked up a couple of new foundation types of brushes recently. I've always been a sponge kind of girl. But recently I felt like the latest Real Techniques sponge that I picked out from my little backup felt different, and it didn't feel good different. It felt really bad different. So I'm not really sure what's going on with my Real Techniques Miracle Complexion sponge, but I hope that they haven't changed the actual material they make it from. I think this looks pretty good and I actually am pretty surprised by the finish. Now, it could be that the finish has nothing to do with the actual brush, but more to do with the fact that my face was really tacky. But I do really like the foundation finish right now. I'm definitely going to try this combination again to see whether finally this brush is going to make the difference between me being meh about this foundation and me actually loving this foundation. Alright, I'm going to set my face and I thought you might enjoy witnessing this as well. I'm going to be using my Wayne Goss, I don't know the name of this brush, something with smooth buffing. I might be lying. I will put the name of this brush somewhere on the screen. It is another one of my Fude brushes, as you can imagine. This is the very first brush that I've ever experienced with blue squirrel bristles, and it is amazing. If I thought my Sonia G brushes were soft, this one is a whole new level of soft. So I'm going to take the tiniest bit of the Pat McGrath setting powder and I'm just going to lightly dust here on my forehead, here around my nose, and especially here around my cheeks where I have a bit more pores that need to be blurred. And I'm not really going to bother with the rest of my face because I don't really get that oily around this part. Let's apply a little bit of that Chocolate Soleil bronzer, taking that on one of my M brush by Maxineshka. Picked up a little bit too much, and I'm going to unbuff this very gently. It is a relatively pigmented bronzer, so one really needs to be careful with that. And because of the matte finish, it tends to stick a little bit more to more tacky parts of your face, and it is a little bit more difficult to blend out, but it's definitely not a difficult to work with formula. It's just that I have grown to like so much more the more, you know, dewy type of finish cheek products. The only discouraging thing about this bronzer is that no matter how fucking hard you try, you don't seem to be able to even put a dent in it. How do people pan these bronzers? I have no fucking clue. Now, for the really fun part, I'm going to take out the Daniel Sandler watercolor blushes, and for my blush, I think I'm going to do a little bit of mixy-mixy of this shade together with this shade. Actually, I might try mixing the blush with a little bit of each of the highlighters and see which one I prefer, but you have to shake them really well because they are a really runny liquid formula and you do have to shake them really well. But what comes out is incredibly pigmented and you need the littlest amount to work on your cheeks with. I'm going to put a drop of that Daniel Sandler blush like this, just so you can see how runny it is and how the color looks like before I mix it with anything else. Just so you can see, this is the blush mixed in with a little bit of this deeper highlighter. Not that I'm surprised, but the Koyodo brush is doing a great job at buffing in that liquid blush. And for my highlight, I'm just going to use the deeper shade of the highlight because I really enjoy how it doesn't really give off much color. It basically looks like a sheen because it kind of mixes with my own skin tone. And I'm going to actually use just the Fupa brush again because I'm curious whether it works. And I'm just going to slightly gently apply it over top in this way. I don't know whether you can tell, these are subtle, but they give such a nice youthful glow to the skin. I just absolutely love them. Definitely make sure to let me know if you would be interested in like a full-on review and demo of all of the colors that I got in this set and how I like to mix them together. And now finally we can move on to the eyes, where the only thing I can tell you is that I haven't really made up my mind exactly what I want to do, but I want to do something a little bit deeper and smokier because why the fuck not? So I'm going to start off with something super simple. I'm just going to take this shade here as a transition shade and just buff it through my crease and actually mix it in with a little bit of this one. So you guys, I just realized that I completely forgot to put on my eyeshadow base, my concealer and my brow, so I'm going to do that off my camera and I'll be back. So guys, this is probably not what you expected to see. You expected that we're going to be doing the look together. Let me tell you, that technical mishap from my last Shop My Stash video, which was also my previous video, might not have been a mishap. I feel like my camera is starting to misbehave because it seems like it's recording and I think it's recording and then all of a sudden it fades to black and there is no footage. So I don't fucking know what's going on, but it's really frustrating because I tried to record at least parts of this look. Nothing has been recorded, unfortunately. So I'm just going to have to tell you what I did because I still do very much enjoy the look and I hope to be able to post this video anyway. Basically what I did is from the Gwen Stefani palette I used these two shades over here in order to blend through my crease just as a transition shade. I applied this shade on my brow bone and then using a brush like this one, this is the Sony G Worker Pro, which is a little bit like the MAC 217, so it is a little bit flat, but it also has a little bit of fluffiness to it so that you can blend out. I used this brush together with this shade over here, which is a very deep grey taupe shade. I applied that all over my lid, basically as a smoky eye, and then I blended it out together with the transition shades, and I applied the tiniest bit also on my lower lash line. Then I applied glitter glue, and over top of that glitter glue I went in with a couple of Moondust shades. I decided to use the shade Galaxy on the outer part of my lid, then I used this shade Magnetic on the inner part of my lid, and the shade Spectre into my inner corners. And then to finish off my lower lash line, I applied the shade Vega. I did, however, spritz my brush before I applied the Vega shade, because otherwise I would have gotten like glitter and fallout all over my face. And even though this look wasn't exceptionally complicated, I still am a little bit sad that I didn't get to show you how I did it, because I did very much enjoy the process as well. It was just such a beautiful, nostalgic process to go into these two palettes, which are so old and still bring me so much joy. Then to finish off my look, just so I complete the eye look, I have the Kiko eyeshadow stick in the number 17, which is a very deep dark blue, just on my waterline, and that is pretty much all that's going on my eyes. I'm very sorry you didn't get to see how it was created. Let's do now the lipstick, shall we? I'm going to apply the tiniest bit of backtalk because I hesitate whether I want to use backtalk or just go for hideaway. So I'm going to apply the tiniest bit here. Let's try hideaway on the upper lip and see which one we prefer. Whoopsie daisy. I prefer Hideaway. I'm going to go for Hideaway. So this is the lipstick on its own, and now I'm going to take the tiniest bit of the Vintage Gloss from Anastasia Beverly Hills and apply that over top. So guys, this is the final look. I hope you enjoyed the video despite the continuing technical difficulties. I'm very sorry, I have no idea what the fuck is going on with my camera and I'm quite worried about it. That being said, I still very much enjoyed this Shop My Stash situation because I'm really experiencing like a full-blown emotional nostalgia when I dig into all of these products, and I had forgotten how really well some of them work. Especially something like the Moondust palette from Urban Decay. It used to be one of my absolute favorite products ever in my makeup collection, and I have barely touched it in the past year or two. Yes, the special shades from Pat McGrath are better, they're far superior in terms of their sparkle and their formula, but these are still nice and I would really like to get a bit more use out of them before I say goodbye to this eyeshadow palette. Anyway, with this I'm going to close off this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to see more of my face, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!